There's never a dull moment when it comes to Minnesota sports. Whether it's positive or negative.
The Yankees have swept the Twins.
Minnesota Sports Chat has you covered. Talking nothing but Minnesota sports all year long. It's time now for the soon-to-be award-winning, if only in his own mind, Minnesota Sports Chat with your host, Ross Brendel.
Well, that would be me, and this unofficially is edition number 233 of the aforementioned soon-to-be award-winning Minnesota Sports Chat, presented by my friends at Beans Coffee Company. This is the Minnesota Golden Gophers review and preview show. Hey, our Gophers, they've won a couple conference games in a row, coming off of a 21-17 win at the Rose Bowl over UCLA. That is the Southern California sweep, having dispatched of USC just a week prior at Huntington Bank Stadium. We welcome in Daniel House from Gophers Guru, gophersguru.com, to talk about it all. Mr. Daniel House, how the heck have you been since we talked last week?
It was a good weekend. I actually liked the Gophers playing later because then I could just watch the college football slate the whole day. And then this week I get the entire college football day to myself. So I'll be doing a lot of studying during the day. I
may head down to an undisclosed MIAC location this weekend and take D3 football. So we'll see about that. We'll see about that. Little TBD, little up in the air. I would say 50-50 at this point. If not, I will spend all day on the couch doing what you will be doing, watching other teams not named the Golden Gophers who enter bye-week championship season. But before that, they went 1-0 in UCLA championship season.
Roseman, check down, Taylor, touchdown!
He's a really good player. I tell you what, you watch Max in the pocket on that last play, his poise, his resiliency to be able to find areas, to be able to make that play, that's huge. Our defense really helped us out tonight. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't perfect, but I've learned for a long time, there are no bad wins.
Got that right, Coach.
Go, Sky, him out, go.
That will never not be funny to me. It wasn't as good as the week prior after the USC win, but the row the boat, Sky, you might go Gophers, always a chuckler. You know, Daniel, I'll say this. Sometimes it's even better when they lose because it's so despondent and dejected. But the last few weeks, they've been very entertaining in a win. And I certainly appreciate that. The Gophers get to 4-3. Suddenly, Daniel, they actually may legitimately earn themselves a bowl berth. We'll see how the season develops. They get Maryland after the bye. Gophers did trail UCLA 10-0 at the half. It was a hideous first half of football. Max Brosmer goes 26 for 37, $193, and 2 passing touchdowns. Daniel Jackson, 10 receptions, 89 yards receiving. Minnesota, I believe, Daniel, won the game because they won the turnover battle. 3 picks of Ethan Garbers, an interception by Cody Lindenberg, a big one by Coy Parrish in the third quarter, and the game-sealing one on the Hail Mary to end the game. Daniel, it was ugly, but where I do agree with the coach of the football team, doesn't really matter. There are no bad wins. I thought the Gophers played really well in the second half. If they could have got out of their own way in the first half, I think they would have won comfortably. At the end of the day, they've won 2 in a row. They have a winning record, and they head into the stretch part of the season still with a lot to play for. So credit to them for being able to do that.
I'd just come back to Max Brosmer. I think he's playing at a really high level right now. I remember everybody panicking after the first game. Oh, my gosh, what happened? And, you know, that first game, it was a weird scheme. You know, first game, everybody's preparing for ghosts and trying to get used to stuff. And then now he's just settled in every week. I think he's gotten even better. And it's just a credit to the work that he puts in, the preparation side of it. I mean, just the processing. It's everything that you saw like in New Hampshire. When he gets down in the red zone, he can, process, get the ball in the right spot with good ball placement and accuracy, anticipate windows, does a really good job of just establishing control. Like he plays with great flow. Like he gets the whole team to rally around him. And I think that's the trait that you look for in a quarterback: accuracy, anticipation, processing, ball placement, field vision, ability to lead. Like, he checks all of those boxes, and he's adjusted super well. It's a credit to Greg Harbaugh and the work he's done. I think Greg Harbaugh deserves a lot of credit for what they've done schematically through the first few games here. Just some things, screen game, using it as an extension of the rushing attack, generating more yards after the catch, just conceptually with the quick game, what they've been able to do with that. I think that you've seen a little bit of a change in terms of philosophical approach just because of the quarterback that they have.
I think what I really liked about this game specifically, Daniel, was that they were able to pass their way to victory in a day where they couldn't run the ball very well. I think Darius Taylor only had 30 or 40 rushing yards. As a team, I think they ran for less than 100 yards. You might have that number right in front of you, Daniel. But it was good to see them pass their way to a victory by having a good third and fourth quarter through the air. And again, look, at the end of the year, I think we'll be able to do a bit better of a postmortem on, is UCLA actually better than what their record says, or are they just a bad football team? But I think at this point, that's tough to tell because it had been about a month since UCLA hadn't played a team that sits currently in the top 20. But again, what I'm getting at is it was nice to see, no matter who the opponent is, okay, we need to move the ball up and down the field. We're not running the ball well at all today. We can't run the ball, so we're going to need to do it through the air. And to be able to do that, I think is a really good sign for this team as they head down the stretch of the season. Again, still with a chance, Daniel, 5 games to go. Not saying they're going to win them all, but there's still a chance to put 8 or 9 wins on the board here.
It's just, it's a credit to, Max Brosmer, the skill players. I think Elijah Spencer's played well early in the year, catching the ball, running good routes, seeing the field to know where zone soft spots are to find them. Daniel Jackson just showing great hands. I mean, several difficult grabs over the course of the first few games of the season here. And, I think that everything's come together really good offensively. Like it's every week it seems to be, getting a little bit better. I think the offensive line is going to be the big thing moving forward here is that unit just has to gel and, become cohesive. I think UCLA had a great scheme trying to keep the backs in and pass protection with simulated pressures. It's something that I want to see if other teams do moving forward and how Minnesota counteracts it. They've been using the backs in the passing game a lot, getting them out of checkdowns and route designs. And UCLA decided to, drop a defender, send a replacement defender like a linebacker or safety. That's basically what a simulated pressure is, and it forces you to keep a running back in for protection purposes. So, at the end, they've been doing that a lot, especially in the second half, like late second quarter throughout the second half, they were running those. And then on the last drive, they didn't do it. And on the game-winning play, Darius Taylor is, looking at protection key to see if he needs to stay in for protection. They didn't send anything. You're going through all the way to the end of the progression to hit that outlet for the touchdown. That was just, unbelievable. All game, they've been keeping the back in and protection. And then right there, they decided to take a little bit of a different schematic approach. So that was fascinating.
Yeah. And on the offensive line portion, good to see the offensive line being able to hold up 5-on-4 and give Brosmer the time to go through the protections and find the open man. A Coy Parrish question for you that I think I know the answer to. I'm not super worried. It's possible. I wouldn't be surprised. He's had a hell of a season now, and I wouldn't be surprised if he winds up at a different university next year, but I will also say this. I don't expect it. I think the Gophers already went through the toughest part of landing him, of getting him here from high school to his freshman year. Now that he's here, playing for his home state, making an impact, doing good things, they'll find him money in the collective. I don't think I'm super worried about him leaving. Again, I'm not saying that it won't happen. I just think there's a lot of reasons and a lot of cases to be made that he will stay here. And I know this is more the review and preview pod, but I'm already starting to see that fear on the X machine and the social media machine that he's one and done and he'll go somewhere else. Well, if that was the case, he could have already done that. And again, I know people leave all the time after their freshman, sophomore, and junior years now. But I think there's also enough reason to believe that he'll be back and that he does want to stay here. And another one of those reasons is all the safeties that they've put in the NFL, which he himself has talked about as recently as last week. So I guess I don't really know what my point here is other than to say I'm not super convinced or worried. But yeah, the possibility exists, but it exists for everybody now. It's just the era that we live in college football.
Yeah, I mean, you can say that for a lot of players. You can say that, there's stuff that goes on behind the scenes. There's people getting contacted illegally. It happens all the time, but
No, not in college football.
Living in the present, it's been interesting to just see Corey Heatherman's defense in terms of the multiple nature of it. Kerry Brown was unavailable to play, and so that kind of thrust Coy into getting more snaps, and then you can just see his speed out there, the difference he makes. He pops right away. The ability to break and drive on the ball, they can do a lot of different things with their zone coverages and in replacing roles and putting guys in different spots. And Coy is very versatile. His movement skills are excellent. And he seems to be picking it up fast. I mean, that's what I think people don't talk enough about is this guy didn't get here until, June. And then, he was getting healthy and trying to get back out there. And just for him to be able to adjust that fast, huge credit to Danny Collins. I mean, Danny Collins has just consistently done it here. I mean, Newman, Howden, Winfield, he was in a different role, but still was on the staff when Winfield was here. You look at what he's been able to do now with this safety room. It's younger, and to get them ready to play, I think it's been a very impressive job. I think he's going to be a guy that's ascending in the business and get a lot of interest from people because he's done a nice job.
Speaking of getting a lot of interest, I always have a lot of interest in my friends at Beans Coffee Company. Thank you for those of you applauding at home for that transition and segue. Beans Coffee Company, they've been supporting Minnesota Sports Chat for a few years now. So thank them. Thank them for supporting this podcast. And you can do that by checking out coffeebybeans.com. Again, I say this now all the time. Not even asking you to buy anything, but I am confident that when you go to coffeebybeans.com, you'll see something that you might want to try out. And I know you'll love it from that point forward. Roasts and varieties, blends for everybody. You're sure to find something delightful and tasty that you're looking for that'll cleanse your personal palate of coffee drinking excellence. Truly the best small batch coffee you will ever try. Coffeebybeans.com is the website. Promo code SportsChat. Again, promo code SportsChat will save you some cash at checkout. That's coffeebybeans.com, where all orders of $35 or more ship for free. Coffeebybeans.com, promo code SportsChat. Okay, so we have entered bye-week championship season where I expect the Gophers to go 1-0. Part of going 1-0 in bye-week championship season, Daniel, is having success on the recruiting trail. How important are in-season recruiting visits where you essentially now get a couple of them in season because you get a couple of bye weeks? How important is that? And I guess dumb question, is it more impactful or more meaningful when you're coming off of a win than a loss? Does it make it easier to recruit? Does that have any merit?
I think it helps you out in Southern California. I mean, that's an area that has a lot of talent.
Fair.
They're definitely putting a footprint out there. They got Jackson Collick, quarterback, Laguna Beach, who I really like a lot. I remember when he was up here at a camp, ended up going to Washington, but then the coaching staff change happens, and they're able to circle back to him, and he's improved. I mean, you watch his film from where he was when Minnesota started showing interest in him to where he is now. I think there's a lot of potential with him. He's very athletic. He's got a strong arm, can make throws at all three levels, escapability, athleticism, gives you some different dimensions. I like how he fits what they're trying to do schematically long-term, what we saw some of the stuff this year. And I mean, he's an example. Legend Lyons is another receiver out of California. I mean, they've been really starting to put that footprint out there. And so to have a couple of wins over UCLA and USC, it doesn't hurt. I mean, and then, you're casting your footprint other places too, based on the talent that you see out there, recruiting areas that you feel could be advantageous, using your connections. It gives you something to sell. I mean, you're exactly right. Going on the trail, when maybe you're off a loss versus a win. I'm sure it plays into it. There's things to talk about, but I also think that like those relationships are being cultivated over time, and it's not something that's just like you're going on a recruit trip this weekend and getting to know that person. You've built a lot of relationships over time.
So I want to take a look around the Big Ten, and I want to close with something kind of fun for you that I think you'll enjoy. Well, let's go around the Big Ten really quickly. You have Oregon taking on Purdue at Purdue. I believe that's a Friday night game. Yeah, Friday night, Oregon at Purdue. Nebraska at Indiana. That could be fun. Indiana looks to go to 7-0. Nebraska, believe it or not, if they get the win, will be 6-1. Wisconsin is at Northwestern. I think Wisconsin's beaten Northwestern like 68 times in a row. It's something ridiculous. It's not that bad. That's, of course, exaggeration. But isn't it like 17 or 18 times? Is that true, Daniel? Do you know that?
I know it was Purdue. I'm not sure on North. No, I don't think it's Northwestern because I think Northwestern beat them.
No, you're right. You're right. I was thinking of Purdue. Good work. Thanks for correcting me. That's why I keep you on the payroll. UCLA is at Rutgers. Potentially could be a win for UCLA. We'll see. Rutgers 1-2 in Big Ten play. Here's a game that I think is interesting to me. Michigan is at Illinois. Daniel, I would be shocked if Michigan wins that football game.
Well, you know that Illinois is going to try to compress the game, run the football, use the play action attack off of it, which I think Barry Lunny's a really good play caller in terms of like making things, making little tweaks and adjustments, building off of designs as the game goes on. I thought that Purdue-Illinois game was absolutely insane last week, how Illinois let them back into that game. And, I literally I have to go back and watch that second half yet. I haven't had a chance to do it, but I watched part of the first half and Illinois is executing perfectly. McCray's playing well, like Altmaier's getting it done. Like I couldn't believe when it ended 50-49.
Yeah, and Purdue had a chance to win the game a couple of different times. I mean, that was pretty impressive on their part and good work because, again, they could have easily packed it in and mailed it in for that game already at 1-4, and they didn't. But, good luck to them this weekend with Oregon. USC is at Maryland, 2-3-3 teams there. And then you also have Iowa taking on Michigan State. Anything else stand out in the Big Ten to you besides Michigan and Illinois?
I'm interested in Iowa, Michigan State. Bye week reset for the Spartans, able to evaluate things. I thought that like they were really close in some of these games to being more competitive. Just some turnovers by Aiden Childs. Can he start taking care of the ball better? It's really, really hurt them. I think defensively they played the run pretty well at times. They've shown that they're pretty good up front. Secondary's undergone some injuries, but been able to hold up. I think, are they going to be able to run the ball? That's the biggest thing in the second half of the season, and it's going to be a big test for them going against Iowa's defense. And you look at Iowa's offensive line, I don't think there's a unit playing better right now, maybe in the whole country at offensive line. Them and Wisconsin, those two offensive lines right now, they are humming and they are really firing on all cylinders.
I always do that. I hit the wrong one.
Don't worry, Daniel. I'm keeping the under.
That's going to be my new signal for the last question. Anytime I hit this, it's the last question.
Don't worry, Daniel. I'm keeping the under.
Are you prepared to live in a world where we get Army and Navy 2 weeks in a row?
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. Like, that's legitimately possible.
Yes, and one of them legitimately could be in the college football playoff. I think this is fantastic. I got a couple of friends that I talk to regularly. I call them America haters. They hate the Army-Navy game, in which I tell them, I said, that's because you don't like America and you don't like football. And now the fact that we might get Army-Navy 2 weeks in a row, and we talked about this, Daniel, they're passing. Both teams are passing the ball. It's a whole new world that we're living in here in 2024. And what I mean by 2 weeks in a row, it's entirely possible that Army and Navy will meet in the AAC championship game because they're in the same conference. They will then turn around a week later and play in the Army-Navy game.
Yep.
But we might have two Army-Navy games. Let's go, Daniel.
Hey, I wonder if that's happened before. I don't think so.
I can't. Recall. I can't imagine that it has. Both teams are undefeated. Army is 6-0. Navy is 5-0. Both teams undefeated, obviously, in conference play. The crazy part, though, is because the scheduling, as we all know in college football, is a little bit weird. Did you know that Army's played 6 games? 5 are in conference.
Wow.
So they're 5-0 in conference.
Wow.
No other team in the AAC has played more than 3 conference games.
Interesting. That's a weird scheduling snafu there.
But it's very possible that we can have Army and Navy. I do know North Texas plays one of them this week. They'll have a say in this, as likely will Tulane and maybe Charlotte. But this could be pretty fun to monitor as the season goes on.
Yeah, I feel like Tulane's really going to assert themselves there. That would be my guess.
Yeah, I mean, I love the sanctity of the Army-Navy game, so a part of me doesn't want to see it 2 weeks in a row, but it also does create a really cool story if it's 2 weeks in a row. So we'll see. That was the fun talker that I have for you.
Fun stuff. Nothing like the AAC.
The AAC, by the way, another conference, when you start to look around, really just a hodgepodge of teams, much like every conference these days.
It is, because you watch like Tuesday and Wednesday night, AAC games, the diversity in the schools in there, it is incredible.
Yeah, you have alone, you have Memphis, East Carolina, Rice, Florida Atlantic, UAB, Temple, Army, Navy. These schools aren't really all that close to each other. But again, I don't know why I'm surprised about that, because that's college football in the year of our Lord 2024. What is at gophersguru.com, Daniel? And what will you be populating the masses with during bye-week championship season?
Well, there's a post out now on the UCLA game, what UCLA did to keep Minnesota's backs in for protection. You can read about that. And then also going to be putting something out on the defense regarding pressure packages that they put in place. And then probably a bye-week recap in just terms of setting this stage for the second half of the season, what I noticed from the first half, and what Minnesota has to do in the second half to string together some success. So keep your eyes out for that.
That is Mr. Daniel House from gophersguru.com. Check it out, gophersguru.com, at Daniel House MN on the X machine. As always, thanks, buddy. I'll give you next week off, and we'll talk again in 2 weeks to review Maryland and preview. I've already lost track. Is it Illinois after Maryland? I think it is.
I believe it's Illinois. Yes,
yeah, I believe it is.
I'm just like one game at a time right now. I know they have Illinois, Penn State, Rutgers, and Wisconsin.
Okay, so you're right, and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it in 2 weeks. Daniel. That's Daniel House. I'm Ross Brendel. Thank you so much for listening to Minnesota Sports Chat. I'm back again in this feed real soon. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, like, comment, and if you're listening, tell your family and friends all about this podcast.
Thanks for listening to Minnesota Sports Chat, presented by Beans Coffee Company. Use the promo code SPORTSCHAT. That's one word, Sports Chat, to save at checkout. Follow Ross on X at @TheRossBrendel. Like and subscribe to Minnesota Sports Chat wherever you get your podcasts. Rate and review kindly.